Oh yeah, that's a big leaf. I wonder how big my pothos leaf is. Alright, this is what I want to draw today. So a point I shared in my pothos video that really stood out to me was how big mature pothos can get in their native or naturalized habitats. I wanted to make a drawing that showed how big the wild pothos was in comparison to the houseplant pothos. While I had some initial sketches of a whole landscape with a wild pothos up a tree and a houseplant below it, I ended up deciding that it'd be more interesting and realistically doable for me was to focus on the size of the leaves. So here I am, measuring the internet giant pothos leaf size via this person's hand size. I thought it'd be great to get a relatively accurate size of how big a wild mature pothos leaf is compared to a baby houseplant pothos leaf. So I measured my hand size, took reference from the photo I found from Google Images, linked from r/houseplants, measured my pothos plant, and ultimately found that the wild pothos is approximately 4.3 times bigger in height and 4 times bigger in width than an average leaf size for my own pothos. Woohoo, math! So with these measurements, I drew out my rough sketches of my house pothos leaf, put the ratios in, drew out how big the wild mature pothos leaf would have been, and here are the approximate sizes I would be using for my drawing. Now on to drawing out the leaves. I thought it'd be a fun visualization to see a regular everyday pothos leaf right next to a mature wild pothos leaf. It would be fun to draw out the leaf pattern as well. Starting off with my regular pothos leaf, my pothos is about 3 years old now, and honestly this is the first time I've ever measured its leaves before. It was like over half my hand size, so about 4.5 inches on average long. I'm referencing an image I took a while back, and starting the drawing by using a charcoal pencil brush and painting the base color. I'm making sure I get the shape right, and then going from there, adding some shading and some lighting. Moving on to the giant pothos leaf, I'm using the same technique where I started painting the base layer. I'm referencing multiple pictures and combining them together to make my own leaf design, hehe. I then add the shading and lighting and add the variegated markings on the plant. This was really fun to do, and I was even trying out different brush shapes, like rough pastel and wet crayon, to get a more textured look. It was a fun challenge to see how my paint strokes could match the actual markings on the plant. I remember being super surprised to learn how big the pothos can get in its native environment. Pothos are vine-like plants that can climb trees and thrive in tropical environments, whereas in an indoor environment, oftentimes space is limited and pothos are much smaller. I just learned recently from watching some plant YouTubers that actually it is possible to grow giant pothos indoors. I learned from Plantarina that if you provide a regular-sized pothos with a pole to grow upwards, a lot of indirect sunlight, and humidity, it will be on its way to grow bigger leaves. Letting the pothos climb up is the biggest factor in getting it to grow bigger leaves. That's super fascinating to me that a regular pothos can turn into a giant pothos as well. Researching about the pothos has gotten me to think more about houseplants as a concept. Houseplants are us humans bringing outdoor plants into our living space. Usually, when I see a potted plant in an indoor space, it's almost automatic for me to see it as part of the indoor design. Ah yes, it's really nice to have some greenery in this room, or that it uplifts the room a bit. We don't normally think about where this plant comes from outside of its houseplant existence. That this plant could have been originally from an environment across the world where it used to grow in a forest, and that generations later had ended up in our living spaces for us to take care of and to live with. It's wild for me to think about. I'm pretty happy with how this drawing came out. Working on this drawing gave me space to think about the pothos in its houseplant and mature wild form. Thanks for watching the speed painting and listening to my thoughts. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. It's fun to try out new things for my videos. Catch you in the next one. Bye!